Since I've been a big film junkie sort of of late, and I've been trying to get into understanding film criticism and what makes a good film, I want to talk to you guys about a couple of aspects about what is makes a bad action film. Now, what action films are in the modern day, unfortunately, is a spectacle. That a lot of times they're presented as little more than a string together set of set pieces that's a spectacle. Now, I recently defended Rogue One as a spectacle movie. And the reason why I did this is because Rogue One got to cheat. It had all its work done for it. Everything that was at stake was already well understood and fleshed out by a million other books, comics, movies, cartoons around Star Wars. You knew who everybody was, who everyone was at stake. And I gotta tell you, the core cast, the rogues, so to speak, I don't remember a single fucking one of their names. And I don't care. Because the movie didn't really focus on them. The movie focused on what was at stake, which was already explained, and the movie was left alone to be a spectacle. And this is not the case with most films. Most films have to show you a character, show you who they are, and give you a reason to give a shit. And most action movies don't even do this fundamental thing. And without being able to give a shit, you are not given a reason to care. There's no tension. And without tension, the movie fails to keep your attention, which is a bad thing. And a lot of times, all the movie has left after that is spectacle. And if a spectacle is not executed perfectly in today's CGI age, it makes the entire movie suck. Movies like Independence Day Resurgence doesn't necessarily suffer too much from the uncanny valley. It does a little bit. Now, what the uncanny valley is when you're seeing something that you know isn't there. This is a problem with a lot of the Incredible Hulk movies, or with several of the X-Men movies, some of the recent ones, like X-Men Apocalypse, and the less recent ones, like the original Fox X-Men trilogy. The CGI, you can't really, or even just the practical effects, you can't really suspend your disbelief. Like, oh, Sabretooth's jumping, obvious wire foo. In a lot of, say, like Wolverine's claws, they don't look real. They look plastic. And a lot of times when something's CGI, it has a lack of weight to it. You're not seeing proper interaction with the environment. This can be a special problem with low-budget movies that use CGI for anything making huge kinetic contact. Shit like car crashes, shit like monsters hitting buildings. If you're not getting a sense that there's a weight and impact there, you're just seeing something kind of floaty and just touching shit, like in a video game, which doesn't look real. And a lot of times, the more real something looks, while still being noticeably fake, the more it can offend your senses and go like, oh, what the fuck? A lot of times, that's a problem with, say, the Star Wars prequel trilogy, where you just know that everything you're looking at is fake, even though it still mostly kind of holds up today, even though CGI has come a very long way since The Phantom Menace. The fact that it's not there, and obviously not there, that the environments are obviously green screened, and nothing is real except for the actor, that will really bother your mind. And so that even though with CGI, anything can be shown, and it makes cinematography basically limitless, if not executed to perfection, it will make something suck more, even though you can achieve such set pieces and such spectacle. The amount of restraint shown in, say, Rogue One again, for instance, is that a lot of times you were being shown something that was being shown with cinematography, with good photography, good film work. The Rule of Three was constantly being shown. You were being shown Death Stars that weren't necessarily even shooting at anybody a lot of the time, but you were given a very clear idea of the size of this object, and it was shown like, oh, it's floating right over the city, like as in a thematic sort of symbol of oppression, of power. You were being constantly shown that theme of what was going on. Even if you weren't actively thinking about it, it was being shown to you, which that kind of choice in the color palette that can show something as being very gritty or very clean and futuristic is all very easy to portray without having to talk about it or without having a crazy spectacle to need to happen. You take movies like, say, the Transformers, and you have, what do you got? You got Sam Witwicky, who's unlikable douche. Nobody Shia LaBeouf's career was almost killed by these movies, even though he made a fucking million, zillion, gazillion dollars off these, because these movies make that much money because people are impressed by spectacles. But did anybody besides a bunch of kids in China who's not used to seeing that kind of fucking spectacle yet, fucking nobody else cared or likes the films. They're pretty universally fucking hated. And even they were doing a mostly good job with the CGI. However, you don't give a shit about the characters. Why the Transformers are doing what they're doing is very poorly explained and understood. And a lot of the Transformers themselves are unlikable. And the Transformer movies often also have the problem of not really showing tension in that the characters can be hurt. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a movie that's universally hated that I love, and it's called Man of Steel. A lot of the reasons why this movie pissed people off is because thematically and tonally, it was not the Superman that everybody's been shown before. It's been criticized as a very emo movie. It's been criticized that too much destruction was caused and Superman would not allow such a thing. And so many thousands of innocent people died. And it was also decried in that Superman killed Zod, and that was fucking something Superman would never do. I never, ever liked Superman as a kid. I always thought he was boring and stupid because he was a goody two-shoes who was not morally conflicted, and he was fucking invincible. He couldn't be killed, and there was nothing he couldn't do, and I found that very fucking boring. Incredibly fucking boring. Batman was interesting because you knew that Batman was just a man. Not only was it amazing all the shit he pulled off because he was just a man, but there was the idea that it was actually possible to one day be Batman in real life if you had just the technology and the training and the discipline. That Batman was actually possible. And in fact, if you take some of the guys like who are in SEAL Team fucking 6, they're kind of like real life Batman. And that's interesting. So you take Man of Steel and you present Superman who doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what he should be, doesn't understand if he should be human or something more than human, doesn't understand if he should use his powers or hide them so he could possibly live a normal life and be happy. And that conflict was shown expertly by the fact that he has two fathers who are telling him to do two different things, and he ends up sort of deciding to do both. He takes the best things of what his two father figures taught him how to do. And then he was thrown into General Zod, keep in mind, on his first day. He'd only recently learned how to fly. He'd never done anything other than I should say his first day fighting anything. He'd saved a couple plane crashes or stopped a couple disasters. He'd never fought anybody. He'd never even been in a fight in his entire fucking life. And he'd actively avoided conflict for fear that anybody that he conflicted with would get fucking obliterated. A very rightful fear. And he's presented with enemies who are born fucking killers, but they're not anywhere near as strong as he is. And the tension is shown in that he's dealing with people who could kick his ass if they were only as strong as him. And then the last fight is he's dealing with General Zod. And General Zod is the penultimate, or that's not the right word, the ultimate killer. He was explained as, set up by the movie, as in he is born to kill and born to protect his planet. And the only way that he can fulfill his fucking purpose is to destroy the Earth and turn it into Krypton. And he begs Superman to help him. And Superman refuses, naturally. And as Superman's fighting him, General Zod makes the decision to expose himself to Earth's atmosphere so that he could get stronger, so that he could kill Superman. And every second in that fight, it's shown that the fight is getting further and further out of Superman's ability to control, and then out of his ability to win. And Superman, who doesn't want to fight Zod, is actually a really nice and non-violent person, and he's never fought anybody before these fucking Kryptonian assholes showed up. And by the end, everybody's so mad that he kills Zod. Zod is shown as constantly throughout the fight getting stronger. At first he can't fly. At first he's not physically as strong as Superman. Then he is as physically as strong as Superman. And then he can fly. And then finally Superman gets him in a fucking headlock, where even if they are equals, that's basically an unget-outable fucking situation for Zod. So Zod starts shooting a laser beam at these innocent people, and it's either one, you let Zod go, which Superman can't do; two, you let Zod kill those innocent people, which Superman can't do; or three, you kill Zod. He was left with no choice, and then when he chooses the only real choice he had, which was to kill Zod, he's overwhelmed with grief because he didn't want to. And I never saw anybody who hated that movie who fucking accurately addressed what was happening in that scene, and that drove me nuts. I was shown consequence. I was shown scope. I was shown what the strengths and weaknesses of every character was. I was shown a situation that was in control, quickly getting out of control, and I was given every excuse for the fucking destruction that was caused, which was that Superman doesn't even know how to control this. He has no fucking experience. He's in the deep end on the first day, and he doesn't fucking know how to fight. The only advantage he has is being fucking Superman. And that took me from Superman fucking sucks and is uncompelling and boring to holy shit, Superman is interesting. He has flaws. He has an arc. He has fucking weaknesses. He has really compelling moral choices to make. He had no choice but to kill. And that is the great quandary of fucking killing in and of itself, is when is it appropriate to kill? When is it righteous to kill? When do you have no choice but to kill? And if you just told me, oh, Superman never kills anybody, I'd tell you, fuck you. Why not? Now, Batman vs. Superman ruined that because we were shown Batman, who really has a fucking psychopathic, neurotic obsession with not killing people. And the lengths that he will go to kill nobody are very fucking extreme. And he was shown constantly in Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman killing people he didn't have to, for expediency's sake. And that was a crime against the fucking character. Superman didn't kill anybody or allow anybody to be killed for the sake of spectacle or for the sake of expedience. It made sense. It was explained. It was justified in the film, which is why I don't understand why people shit on that movie. That movie was done very fucking well. Maybe the acting wasn't perfect, okay, and maybe a lot of the dialogue choices were silly, but what was going on plot-wise, what was going on thematically, what was being shown to me was much more understandable than any other critic of that film I'd ever seen, and that drives me nuts. Because the major fucking sin of so many action movies is not showing any weight, whether physically or emotionally, not showing any tension or any reason to care. The reason why I will always say, and this is one of the most profound things that's ever said in the Plinkett reviews, is when you're shown the original fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. And it's the shittiest choreography you can imagine. It's two fucking old men barely swinging these swords and mostly just talking to each other. However, what's going on when they're talking, the choices that are being made by Obi-Wan to fight Vader in the first place, and the decision to kill himself, basically to sacrifice himself so that he could guide Luke Skywalker very easily as a spirit rather than as a feeble old man, was very interesting. And even in the more wild spectacle of Luke Skywalker facing Darth Vader, where there's telekinesis going on, shit's being thrown, there's people jumping incredible heights. Mostly when it came down to it, when a fighter was getting his ass kicked, he was getting his ass kicked. When fucking Darth Vader cuts off Luke Skywalker's hand, you know he's fucked. you know he's fucked. He's disarmed and fucking holding on to where he can't run. He can't fucking fight. And Darth Vader is not only trying to, has not only dominated him physically, but is trying to get him to abandon his entire moral compass. That's compelling. And when Luke Skywalker beats Darth Vader, when he essentially turns the dark side and defeats Darth Vader temporarily. In a Return of the Jedi, he doesn't show any sort of crazy force or shoot lightning, or there's no real special effect goes on. He just suddenly, and almost inexplicably, but it's very obviously explained when people have talked about the dark side, physically overwhelms Darth Vader and just beats the shit out of him because he's angry, because he's tapped into the dark side. And he just fucking wails on him like he's hitting him with a goddamn baseball bat, like he's the Bear Jew. And that works a hell of a lot better than Anakin Skywalker fighting Obi-Wan for 45 fucking minutes. Neither one gets the upper hand. Neither one of them actually really gets hit until the very end. And you're not ever shown that these people are friends. You're told they're friends, and what you're shown on camera is that they can't fucking stand each other. You're not even really, and then Obi-Wan is just told, go there, kill Anakin, and he just goes, and you're not really shown hardly any of him being conflicted. He sits and broods for 2 fucking seconds. And their main thing that they try to grab your emotional center is, oh, Anakin killed younglings. Well, they don't even show him killing younglings, because there goes your PG-13 rating, first of all. And I know, they show, oh, yeah, he totally did kill the younglings. But if you actually saw him eviscerate fucking children on camera, you'd actually have a palpable disgust for this character, instead of, again, not giving a shit about this whiny asshole who doesn't like sand. So, this is how, thematically, and in dialogue, in choreography, and in spectacle, you can be shown something that matters. And no amount of CGI, if it's, first of all, shot in shaky cam, I can't give a shit about the spectacle of the Transformers because it's in close-up shaky cam, and you can't fucking even tell what the fuck is going on. Even though that actually succeeds against a lot of the things I condemn a lot of shit for, like not showing weight. I generally got a sense of weight and physical impact of the Transformers. That's something that Michael Bay can actually pull off. However, can he shoot? Actually cinematography, show me 2 fucking robots fighting? The fuck he can. Jason Bourne ruined everything with shaky cam and fast editing, and they can't even fucking show me in a lot of gunfights anymore who's shooting who and from where, because they can't hold a cut for more than a quarter of a quarter of a quarter of a quarter of a thousandth of a fucking second, and that thousandth of a thousandth of a thousandth of a second is shaking like fucking crazy. And then it's people you can't give a shit about who are delivering bad lines, who are poorly set up, with a poor script, with a poor plot, with no thematic elements, with no good cinematography, and that's why a lot of shit is bad, okay? And to what extent, say, in closing, what The Force Awakens at least did well was the fights were shot well. Wider angles, more stable shots, you could see what was going on. And that's one thing that hardly any movie does well anymore. You watch that most recent fucking Resident Evil movie, fucking the final chapter, gave me fucking seizures. It's just jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. And it drives me nuts. And a lot of these, and I got to credit this guy, Rossitron, who you should really subscribe to for film breakdowns, taught me about is the rule of lines. I forget exactly what it's called. But if somebody is shooting at somebody and the other guy's shooting back, one guy is shooting this way and the other guy is shooting this way. No matter how you're filming that, from what angle, how fast the cuts are, even if it's shaking, as long as you can see one guy going pow, 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 and the other guy going pow, 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 they're at least shooting at each other. If they're both shooting in the same direction, pow, 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 and then you cut again and another guy's pow, 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 they look like they're shooting the same direction. And if you haven't used any sort of wide establishing shot to show where these guys even fucking are in this area that they're in, then you're really fucking lost. And that's constantly fucking being fucked with in action movies, and that sucks. Anyway, maybe I'll go into depth with more specific shit like that. I've sort of done this as a big, huge fucking rundown of the entirety of what's wrong with action movies, and I've talked for far longer than I usually ever intend to. And I know this isn't my usual content, but if you like this, give me a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think I'm wrong about or right about, and particularly what you want to hear about, whether it's a specific film that you'd like me to watch and maybe talk about, or if maybe a film I've already talked about here, go more in depth about what's good and bad about it. And maybe I'll do a little bit more film-related content. I'll try to keep it low because I know everybody who's already here doesn't give a shit about my shit posts about film or video games for the most part. But if you like this, I don't know if I'm actually going to go and make another channel. But I would like to talk a little bit more about film. And if you guys like that, just comment about that. Anyway, enough repeating that fucking line. Repetition is bad. Thanks for watching.